All right, here I come. Doing an audio check. Can you hear me? This little microphone working? Hey, Hira, welcome in. How are you? What are you doing up? You're not supposed to be up, but I'm glad to see you. What up? You stopping by on the No Music Fridays? It's something I'm trying out since I'm streaming every day still. Almost at a year. Crazy. You're waiting for Fanny Hill, of course. Okay, cool, 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 cool. I know you were here last week. I wait a couple minutes and I'll do a recap. Have you heard of the book before? I hadn't until I happened to find it at my uncle's house. And no, you haven't. Okay. I hadn't either. But apparently it caused quite a stir over the years. And yeah. And it's I put a warning on. I put the sexual content warning on my page this time. It's all steamy. You wouldn't think for 1700s, but it is. It is. Yeah, so he wrote it during when he was in debtor's prison in London in 1749 or something. And it's a lot of light. I'm gonna turn this one down. Oh shoot. They like that thing too. I know. They just didn't talk about it in the same way, so they use all this flowery language. I'm gonna have to mute you for a minute. My mother's calling me. I can't believe it. All right, I'll be back. Okay, I'm back. I'm back. So, yes, they like that thing too, but they had a lot of different words. So we're learning a lot of different words for various body parts and various activities. So, yeah. Hey, Obi, thanks for coming through. Wait, I'm sorry. Shouldn't wear this. All right, sorry, I'm probably messing up that mic. Let me know if that happens again. Yeah. So they weren't supposed to be writing about it or talking about it. So that's why it was banned on and off for years. It was banned again when it was reprinted in the 60s. And I guess it's okay for me to read it here. It's on YouTube. So I assume it's okay here. I don't know. I don't know. Obi, how you doing? Hope you're okay. It is still pretty. Maybe I can make this darker. Doesn't really help. A lot of light. You won't tell on me? Okay, cool. Cool. Okay, so I found this book in my uncle's house who passed away last year, and I'm cleaning out his house, and I'm finding all these things. Now, I have found um, things that are, you know, even though they're vintage, they're definitely in the porn area that I would not share. But this is like literary, I guess. And I found it, and I didn't know what it was, and I picked it up and I read it. It was, I looked at it because I didn't want to throw out any of this. I mean, I don't really throw out books, but I didn't want to get rid of any books without like looking at them. And you never know, there might be something stuck in books. People used to stick things in books, or might be a first edition or something. I don't know. So I looked through it and I was like, oh. And then I looked it up and then found out about this book that was kind of a big deal. And my uncle had two copies of it. There's two copies of this one, and I left the other one at his house. So, all right. So last week we read starting at the beginning, and here's the recap. Fanny was born to a poor family somewhere in England, not in the city. Her parents were poor. They had a lot of kids, but she was the only one who lived. And then both of her parents died of, I'm thinking, consumption or something like that. One of those things people died of back then. They both died within, a short time of each other. And she lived, but she was an orphan with no siblings. And so a townswoman took her in and then took her to London because they thought she could find a job in service there, to be a servant. And that's what she thought she was going to do. She was 15 years old. And so this woman takes her on the journey. She takes all the money. I think that woman gave her money, or the little bit of money she had from her parents. It wasn't a lot. Just accompanying her to London, and then takes her to a hotel, or, whatever you would call them back then, and basically leaves her. Says, okay, my job here is done, and leaves her. She's 15 years old, and she's in the city for the first time. She's in London. And then another woman comes and says, and she's scared. And then she talks to the inn's woman or something and says, do you know where I can go and find work? And the woman's like, oh, yes. And that next day, I think, takes her to another woman, and she thinks she's going to like an employment agency to find service work. And the other woman looks her up and down and says she has something for her. She needs to go to this other place, and they will hook her up, basically. Takes her money, by the way, takes what's left of her money, and then sends her to this other place. And again, she thinks she's going to another place where she's going to get placed into a service role somewhere in somebody's house. She goes, and another lady greets her. So the people that were there before, they were kind of these women. They were kind of little grumpy older women. They take her, and then she goes to this other place, and they are friendly enough, and they take her and they show her up to her room. They feed her good food, and then they show her up to her room, and she's sharing a room with another woman named Phoebe, and they're sharing a bed, which I don't think was uncommon back then. I think people, especially the lower class people, would just share. So she's sharing a room and a bed with Phoebe, and then Phoebe teaches her or shows her the how shall I say this, the ways of the flesh. So she and Phoebe have this thing. Now this girl is 15 years old and doesn't know anything about anything. So at this point, she's like, okay, this is what they do in London, I guess. And so that was her first foray into pleasures of the sex. And then the next day, she's to get up, and then they dress her, and they feed her again, and she's in a nice place, and they give her nice clothes, and she's all excited because then she looks at herself. She goes, I'm a snack. She's like, I look good, and she's happy. Remember, she's 15 and a virgin. Well, kind of now, virgin to men, I guess now. And she, she's thinking again. She's still thinking that she's going to get a job as a servant in a house. And then they have this little dinner, and then they have this, and then a man comes, and this man is old and ugly. I mean, the way she describes how she is so turned off by this man, she says she can't. And they have basically sold her to this man because she's a virgin, so he had to pay extra. So he was going to pay, and she's pretty, so he paid handsomely. He paid the women, actually, not her. Paid the women in order to have this beautiful young virgin, and he's this old gross man, and she's not having it, and she fights him off, and doesn't. Well, she fights him off. He gets a little bit too excited and leaves the game early, if you know what I mean. Um, so she gets out of it that way for a little bit, and then um, and then that's it. And then he comes back, though. I think that's where we left off. He comes back because he still wants his virgin, and he keeps telling her, "I'm not going to hurt you. I want to take care of you. I love you." She's like, "No, please, no." She threw herself at his feet, saying, "No, please, no." Poor girl. Anyway, that's where we are left. So we will start there. Uh, Whilst this confusion of ideas was passing in my head, and as I sat pensive by the fire, with my eyes brimming with tears, my neck still bare, and my cap fallen off in the struggle, so that my hair was in disorder, you may guess, the villain's lust began, I suppose, to be again in flow, at the sight of all that bloom of youth which presented itself to his view, a bloom yet unenjoyed, and of course not yet indifferent to him. After some pause, he asked me, with a tone of voice mightily softened, whether I would make up with him before the old lady returned and all should be well. He would restore me to his affections, and at the same time offering to kiss me and feel my breast. But now my extreme aversion, my fears, my indignation, all acting upon me, gave me a spirit not natural to me, so that breaking loose from him, I ran to the bell and rang it, before he was aware, with such violence and effect as brought up the maid to know what was the matter, or whether the gentleman wanted anything. And before he could proceed to greater extremities, she bounced into the room, and seeing me stretched on the floor, my hair all disheveled, my nose gushing out blood, which did not a little tragedize the scene. Tragedize. I like that. Tragedize the scene. And my odious persecutor still intent of pushing his brutal point, unmoved by all my cries and distress. She was herself confounded and did not know what to say. As much, however, as Martha might be prepared and hardened to transactions of this sort, all womanhood must have been out of her heart. She could have seen this unmoved. Besides that, on the face of things, she imagined that matters had gone to greater lengths than they really had, and that the courtesy of the house had been actually consummated on me, and flung me into the condition I was in. In this notion, she instantly took my part, and advised the gentleman to go down and leave me to recover myself, and all would be soon over with me. That when Mrs. Brown and Phoebe, who were gone out, were returned, they would take order for everything to his satisfaction, that nothing would be lost by a little patience with the poor tender thing, that for her part she was frightened, and she could not tell what to say to do such things, but that she would stay by me till my mistress came home. As the wench said all this in a resolute tone, and the monster himself began to perceive the things would not mend by his staying, He took his hat and went out of the room, murmuring, pleating his brows like an old ape, so that I was delivered from the horrors of his detestable presence. As soon as he was gone, Martha very tenderly offered me her assistance in anything, and would have got me some hartshorn drops and put me to bed, which last at first positively refused in the fear that the monster might return and take me at that advantage. However, with much persuasion and assurances that I should not be molested that night, she prevailed on me to lie down, and indeed I was so weakened by my struggles, so dejected by my tearful apprehensions, so terror-struck, that I had no power to sit up, or hardly to give answers to the questions with which the curious Martha plied and perplexed me. Such, too, and so cruel was my fate, that I dreaded the sight of Mrs. Brown, as if I had been the criminal and she the person injured, a mistake which you will not think so strange, on distinguishing that neither virtue nor principles had the least share of the defense I had made, but only the particular aversion I had conceived against the first brutal and frightful invader of my tender innocence. I passed, then, the time till Mrs. Brown's return home, under all the agitations of fear and despair that may easily be guessed. About 11 at night my two ladies came home, and having received rather a favorable account from Martha, who had run down to let them in, for Mr. Crofts, that was the name of my brute, was gone out of the house. After waiting till he had tired his patience for Mrs. Brown's return, they came thundering upstairs, and seeing me pale, my face bloody, and all the marks of the most thorough dejection, they employed themselves more to comfort and re-inspirit me, than in making me reproaches I was weak enough to fear, I who had so many juster and stronger to retort upon them. Mrs. Brown withdrawn, Phoebe came presently to bed to me, and half with the answers she drew from me, and half with her own method of palpably satisfying herself, she soon discovered that I had been more frightened than hurt, upon which I suppose, being herself seized with sleep, and reserving her lectures and instructions till the next morning, she left me, properly speaking, to my unrest. For after tossing and turning the greatest part of the night, and tormenting myself with the falsest notions and apprehensions of things, I fell, through mere fatigue, into a kind of delirious doze, out of which I waked late in the morning, in a violent fever, a circumstance which was extremely critical to reprieve me, at least for a time, from the attacks of the wretch, infinitely more terrible to me than death itself. The interested care that was taken of me during my illness, in order to restore me to a condition of making good the bawd's engagements, or of enduring further trials, had, however, such an effect on my grateful disposition, that I even thought myself obliged to my endurers for their attention to promote my recovery, and, above all, for the keeping out of my sight of that brutal ravisher, the author of my disorder, or their finding I was too strongly moved by the bare mention of his name. Youth is soon raised, and a few days were sufficient to conquer my fury of my fever. But what contributed most to my perfect recovery and to my reconciliation with life was the timely news that Mr. Crofts, who was a merchant of considerable dealings, was arrested at the King's suit for near £40,000 on account of his driving a certain contraband trade, and that his affairs were so desperate that even were it in his inclination, it would not be his power to renew his designs upon me. He was instantly thrown into a prison, which it was not likely he would get out of in haste. Ha ha! Mrs. Brown, who had touched his 50 guineas, advanced to so little purpose, and lost all hopes of the remaining 100, began to look upon my treatment of him with a more favorable eye, and as they had observed my temper, to be perfectly tractable and conformable to their views, all the girls that composed their flock were suffered to visit me, and had their cue to dispose me, by their conversation, to a perfect resignation of myself to Mrs. Brown's direction. Accordingly, they were let in upon me, and all that frolic and thoughtless gaiety into which those giddy creatures consumed their leisure made me envy a condition of which I only saw the fair side, insomuch that being one of them became even my ambition, a disposition which they all carefully cultivated, and I wanted now nothing but to restore my health, and that I might be able to undergo the ceremony of the initiation. Welcome! Oh my goodness, welcome! Bubalo! Thank you for the raid. How was your stream? We get a little shout out to you. Wait, let me do the other kind. Is that gonna work? No, it doesn't work. I didn't do the. Okay. Let's try that again. Thank you for the raid. How was your stream? What were you doing? Don't know that I know you. Not following yet. Keep a Twitch page open. So, a little bit about me. If you're new here, you're doing some drawings, just hanging out mostly. Oh, I love it. Okay. Drop you a follow. Here's a little bit about me. Usually I am playing and singing at the piano, but I've started to do No Music Fridays where we do something else. Last week was the first one, and then this week, and we're reading. We won't always read. But because I am on a stream streak, I've been streaming daily. Today is 340 days. And so because I stream every day, I have the opportunity and sometimes necessity to stream other content. So this is some of that other content. So welcome in, welcome in. Hello, I spelled her name wrong, didn't I? So we were reading from Fanny Hill, Memoirs of a Woman of Pleasure by John Cleland. It was written in 1749, and it...
Jolly Rancher.
Oh, wait. Thought I had muted.
Made with huge fruit flavor.
Sorry. Here we go. I was just checking out your page. I don't have the automatic thing that kind of does the about thing for me. Good afternoon, goobers. Okay. I'm Bub and I. Olo. Okay. Love it. Okay. Well, welcome in. D Nice. Hi. Welcome in. Welcome in. Yeah, it's almost a year. It's crazy because it wasn't really planned. I just started streaming more during September. That's what that was about. And then, I thought, well, how long can I do this? So that's what happened. No. Wait, is Acid Angel here? Hey, Acid Angel. You're being rigged out. We're learning. So this book was written in 1749. So we're learning all these different ways. I don't believe there's one swear word as we know them in here. It's more known for its use of euphemism for various acts and body parts. So flowery language, just talk about some crazy stuff. Hey, Latasia. So we got a couple of the stream dignitaries here, Acid Angel and Latasia. We have some regulars, Obi and earlier. And then we have a raid. And we have Hira in. I'm probably missing some folks, and shout out to the lurkers. We are lurk friendly here. I don't keep the list up. So at any given time, I don't know who's watching or even how many. So if there's anyone out there who wants to just listen to this steamy novel and not have anybody see your name, that's cool. we will honor that and just let you lurk. So anyway, how you doing, Acid Angel Girl? So I got them caught up about her being kind of turned out the once, and then that one with that one gross guy. Yes, I want socks with this skirt. Get comfortable. And since he couldn't actually finish the job, and she, which was a good thing, and she fought him off. So I don't know how much you're listening. Then she got sick. It literally made her sick. She had a fever, but she got better. Oh, you're welcome for sleeping, Kami. Oh, thanks. Oh no. Oh, I'm sorry. Latasia has another migraine. I know how that is. Hey, Latasia. Will you tell her we said hi and hi to you? Thanks for taking care of our girl. I hope she feels better. All right, so we're reading again from this book. So yeah, so the other ladies came home. They thought they'd left her with him because he had paid extra for a virgin and wanted her to be, he was going to keep her, but didn't work out. And then we just found out that he got arrested and sent to jail because he was stealing. So yay. So he's gone. She doesn't have to worry about him, but she is basically living in a brothel, so he won't be the only one. Yeah, we hope Latasia feels better soon. Yeah, so I'm just going to read a little bit and get to bed. I am trying to work on my sleep schedule, so is Acid Angel Girl. I've been streaming daily, and for probably 80% of those days were overnight streams or streams when I didn't start until after midnight or after 1 or after 2 or after 3. And it was taking its toll. So I'm trying to pull back from that. So, not the streaming, just the staying up so late to do so. This will be another little short stream, get a little, and then we won't always do reading from this book, but we'll do it some, and then we'll do some other stuff. So this is just kind of interesting to me, and it's good for me to read from a book, not from a screen. Sometimes you read the stuff that I've written, which is good for me too because it's it's a way of editing. Okay, all right. So this man had paid. He didn't get all of his money yet because he didn't complete. Now he's in jail, but they got some money out of him. And poor Fanny was so distraught it made her literally sick. And then they nursed her back to health, and now she's still, but she's still again living in this brothel. Accordingly, they were let in upon me, and all that frolic and thoughtless gaiety in which those giddy creatures consume their leisure made me envy a condition of which I only saw the fair side, insomuch that being one of them became even my ambition, a disposition which they all carefully cultivated, and I wanted now nothing but to restore my health, that I might be able to undergo the ceremony of the initiation. Oh, so she's basically saying, I want to be like them, because they're happy. I guess they're happy. Conversation example. All into short contributed in that house to corrupt my native purity. Oh, it's kind of sad. Which had taken no root in education, whilst now the inflammable principle of pleasure, so easily fired at my age, made strange work within me, and all the modesty I was brought up in the habit, not the instruction of, began to melt away like dew before the sun's heat, not to mention that I made a vice of necessity from the constant fears I had of being turned out to starve. Also, that's kind of sad, because she knows she doesn't really have any other options. I was soon pretty well recovered, and at certain hours allowed to arrange all over the house, but cautiously kept from seeing any company till the arrival of Lord B. from Bath, to whom Mrs. Brown, in respect to his experienced generosity on such occasions, proposed to offer the perusal of that trinket of mine, which bears so great an imaginary value, and his lordship being expected in town in less than a fortnight, Mrs. Brown judged I would be entirely renewed in beauty and freshness by that time, and afford her the chance of a better bargain that she had driven with Mr. Crofts. In the meantime, I was so thoroughly, as they call it, brought over, so tame to their whistle, that had my cage door been set open, I had no idea that I ought to fly anywhere sooner than stay where I was, nor had I the least sense of regretting my condition, but waited very quietly for whatever Miss Brown should order concerning me, who on her side, by herself and her agents, took more than the necessary precautions to lull and lay asleep all that reflections in my destination. Preachments of morality over the left shoulder, a life of joy painted with the gayest colors, caresses, promises, indulgent treatment. Nothing, in short, was wanting to domesticate me entirely and to prevent my going out anywhere to get better advice. Alas, I dreamed of no such thing. Hitherto I had been indebted only to the girls of their house for the corruption of my innocence, their luscious talk, in which modesty was far from respected. Their description of their engagements with men had given me a tolerable insight into the nature and mysteries of their profession, at the same time that they highly provoked an itch of florid, warm-spirited blood through every vein. But above all, my bedfellow Phoebe, whose pupil I more immediately was, exerted her talents in giving me the first tinctures of pleasure, whilst nature, now warmed and wanton to discoveries so interesting, piqued the curiosity with which Phoebe artfully whetted, and leading me from question to question of her own suggestion, explained to me all the mysteries of Venus. But I could not long remain in such a house as that, without being an eyewitness of more than I could conceive from her descriptions. One day, about 12 at noon, being thoroughly recovered of my fever, I happened to be in Mrs. Brown's dark closet, where I had not been half an hour, resting upon the maid's settle bed, before I heard a rustling in the bedchamber, separated from the closet only by two sash doors, before the glasses of which were drawn two yellow damask curtains, but not so close as to exclude the full view of the room from any person in the closet. I instantly crept softly and posted myself so that, seeing everything minutely, I could not myself be seen, and who should come in but the venerable Mother Abbess herself, handed in by a tall, brawny young horse grenadier, molded in the Hercules style, in, in fine, the choice of the most experienced dame in those affairs in all London. Oh, how still and hushed did I keep at my stand, lest any noise should balk my curiosity, or bring madam to the closet. But I had not so much reason to fear either, for she was so entirely taken up with her present great concern that she had no sense of attention to spare to anything else. Droll was it to see that clumsy fat figure of her flop down on the foot of the bed, opposite to the closet door, so that I had a full front view of all her charms. Her paramour sat down by her. He seemed to be a man of very few words, and of great stomach, for proceeding instantly to essentials, he gave her some hearty smacks, and thrusting his hands into her breast, disengaged them from her stays. In scorn of those confinement, they broke loose, and swagged down, navel low at least. A more enormous pair did my eyes never behold, nor of a worse color, flagging soft and most lovingly contiguous. If such as they were, the neck beef eater seemed to paw them with the most uninvitable gust, seeking in vain to confine or cover one of them with a hand scarce less than the shoulder of a mutton. After toying with them thus some time, as if they had been worth it, he laid her down pretty briskly, and canting her up her petticoats, made barely a mask of them to her broad red face, that blushed with nothing but brandy. As he stood on one side for a minute or so, unbuttoning his waistcoat and breeches, her fat brawny thighs hung down, and the whole greasy landscape laid fairly open to my view. A wide open mouth gaped, overshaded with a grizzly bush, seemed held out like a beggar's wallet for its provision. But I soon had my eyes called off by a more striking object that entirely engrossed them. Her sturdy stallion had now unbuttoned, and produced, naked, stiff, and erect, that wonderful machine, which I had never seen before, and which, for the interest of my own seat of pleasure, began to take furiously in it. I stared at with all the eyes I had, However, my senses were too much flurried, too much encountered in that now burning spot of mine to observe anything more than in general that make and turn of that instrument, from which the instinct of nature, yet more than all I had heard of it, now strongly informed me. I was to expect that supreme pleasure which she had placed in the meeting of those parts so admirably fitted for each other. Oh, hey, Demo. Hey, Eli. To see all of you. You're kind of happy you had some Asian food, Demo? Cool, cool, cool. Okay, she's seen her first instrument. Long, however, the young spark did not remain before giving it 2 or 3 shakes by way of brandishing it. He threw himself upon her, and his back now towards me. I could not only take his being engulfed for granted by the directions he moved in, and the impossibility of missing so staring a mark. And now the bed shook, the curtains rattled so, that I should scarce hear the sighs and murmurs, the heaves and pantings that accompanying the action, from beginning to the end, and sound and sight of which thrilled to the very soul of me, and made every vein of my body circulate liquid fires. The emotion grew so violent that it almost intercepted my respiration. Ooh, that's a nice way of saying it. Wait, let's say that again. The emotion grew so violent that it almost intercepted my respiration. I haven't had my respiration intercepted in a while. Ah, prepared then, and disposed as I was by the discourse of my companions, and Phoebe's minute detail of everything, no wonder that such a sight gave the last dying blow to my native innocence. Oh, she didn't know anything up until now. Well, she still doesn't really. Oh my goodness, my friend Taurus Knight. Oh, Lala Does Things is here. Hello. Coming in with the Night Riders. Welcome in, Towards Night. Thank you so much for the raid. So everybody should be following my good friend Towards Night, who is an inspiration to me in many, many ways. He is also a streaker, but that's not the only way he inspires me. But he is at, I don't know, what day is Towards Night on? I don't know if he's still here. Hey, Towards Night. I don't know. What day are you on? Underdressed? No, I'm just chilling. I'm just chilling in my reading chair. Hello. Who's that? Brunzia? Brunazia? Welcome in. Welcome in. Towards Night is at 1,275 days. 1,275 days of daily streaming. So, hey, Dark Star Slayer. So yeah, he's one of the other streakers that inspires me, but also with his well, first with his art, with his he does freestyle rapping, but also sings, also composes, also loops, also plays guitar, also does karaoke, also does a lot of other stuff, and does on the street. I've lurked in a few of your on your street things in New York. He has this whole setup that he goes and just raps on the street. People give him words, raps with strangers. It's really cool. So just give him a follow, then you'll know what I'm talking about. So I know, 25 days away from a full year. Can you believe it? So yeah. How's the organizing going? Well, it's kind of went to a full stop because I lost my help. So I can't go over there to do what I need to do. I'm in the process of moving, so I'm pre-moving, maybe moving. Maybe I'm trying to sell my house, but I have to get it fixed up first and kind of pre-move the stuff out. And the last 4 days has been like one of those home improvement shows where you have to do everything in 4 days, and I did that. Didn't finish, and now time's up. So I'll get back to it. It's so stressful. It's so stressful, and I don't even know for sure that I'll be able to. It depends on what I can get or do with my house. So yeah, I have to get out from under my current house. It's not doing me. And I have a variable rate mortgage, and it's just taxes went up. I can't afford it. And I don't need to be there anymore. What is this book about? It's memoirs of a woman of pleasure, written in 1749. It's written by man though, and it's fiction, but it's about a Fanny Hill is the character, and she is basically being turned out. Comes from a poor family. Her parents died. She lived like up out in the country. They shipped her off to London, and she's basically living in a brothel, and she's being turned out. You're caught up. Read the books. Yeah, so where I may be moving is my uncle's house, who passed away last year, and so I'm the administrator, and I've been cleaning out his house, and so sometimes I share some of the treasures that I've found. This is one of them. I found this book. He actually had two copies of this book. So it was written in 1749. It was often banned and all kinds of stuff. And then it was reissued again, reprinted, republished over the years, but again in 1963. But it was republished again in the 1800s. It kept getting banned. So 1963 in London and in the US. And I think in both places it was banned again. There was some lawsuits, but now it's cool. It is pretty steamy. They just don't use the words that we use. So towards night, I'm gonna have I'm gonna pull some words out of here and use it. Towards night streams, he gets words from chat to rap with. So I'm gonna have some words for you. Yeah, they're freaky. Don't threaten you with a good time. Oh, we got some words. We got some words. Yeah. So I mean, some of the words we use, but it's a study in euphemisms. So where we just ended up. So she was turned out first by a woman, one of the other women in her where she's living, who she's sharing a room with. So like the first night, she messes with her, and then like the next day, she was basically bought by an ugly older man, and she couldn't do it, and she just begged and fought him off and everything. But he got too excited and left the party early, and so he never finished. And but they thought he did, and then he got arrested, so she doesn't have to worry about him. And so in the meantime, the other ladies in the house who are happy, I mean, they do their thing. They're explaining to her all about the pleasures of the flesh, and she's a virgin ish. I mean, with men. Um, so she so she's learning, and so where we just left off, she stood in the shadows and watched one of her housemates with a man. And although she'd been told about such things, she hadn't seen it before. And so this is the first appearing of what appearance of wait. What does she call it? Um, I'll go back. But I soon had my eyes called off by a more striking object that entirely engrossed them. Her sturdy stallion had now unbuttoned and produced naked, stiff, and erect that wonderful machine which I had never seen before, and which, for the interest of my own seat of pleasure, began to take furiously in it. I stared at with all the eyes I had. However, my senses were too flurried, too much concentrated on that now burning spot of mine to observe anything more than the make and turn of that instrument, from which the instinct of nature, yet more than all I had heard of it, now strongly informed me that I was to expect that supreme pleasure which she had placed in the meeting of those parts, so admirably fitted for each other. Well, there you go. Rightly catches his innocence. Are you? Yeah, if there are any pearl clutchers out there, go get them because you're gonna need them. Man, it's not like we know that everybody, you know, has always been doing the nasty. However, they weren't allowed to talk about it the way we were. And also, these people didn't always take all of their clothes off like ever. Bathing was not a normal thing. So they just could talk about throwing up the petticoats like nothing else comes up. Yes, that's what it is. Erotica. Long, however, the young spark did not remain before giving it 2 or 3 shakes by way of brandishing it. He threw himself upon her, and his back now towards me. I could not only take his being engulfed for granted by the directions he moved in, and the impossibility of missing so staring a mark. And now the bed shook, the curtains rattled so that I could scarce hear the sighs and murmurs, the heaves and pantings that accompanied the action, from the beginning to the end, and sound and sight which thrilled to the very soul of me, and made every vein of my body circulate liquid fires. The emotion grew so violent that it almost intercepted my respiration. I love that line. Intercepted my respiration. Intercepted my respiration. All right, guys. If you're not causing some woman to intercept her respiration, then you got to get to work. Isn't that a good line? Intercepted my respiration. Prepared then, as disposed I was by the discourse of my companion. See, up until now, it's just that she'd been told about this. And Phoebe's minute detail, and Phoebe had turned her out, in bed. But, Phoebe's a woman, so she's not used to the men. Phoebe's minute detail of everything. No wonder that such a sight gave the last dying blow to my native innocence. Whilst they were in the heat of this action, guided by nature only, I stole my hand up my petticoats, and with fingers all on fire, seized, and yet more inflamed that center of all my senses. My heart palpitated, as if it would force its way through my bosom. I breathed with pain. I twisted my thighs, squeezed and compressed the lips of that virgin slit, and following mechanically the example of Phoebe's manual operation on it, as far as I could find admission, brought on at last the critical ecstasy, the melting flow, into which nature, spent with excess of pleasure, dissolves and dies away. Oh, my, my, my. Do you intercept my respiration? Well, I want to kiss and tell. Someone's daughter. Wait, what did he say? Someone's daughter's reparation is about to get interrupted. After which my senses recovered coolness enough to observe the rest of the transaction between the happy pair. The young fellow had just dismounted when the old lady immediately sprung up with all the vigor of youth, derived no doubt from her late refreshment, and making him sit down, began in her turn to kiss him, to pat and pinch his cheeks, and play with his hair, all which he received with an air of indifference and coolness. She shewed him to me much altered from what he was when he first went to the breach. My pious governess, however, not being above calling in auxiliaries, unlocked a little case of cordials that stood near the bed, and made him pledge her in very plentiful dram. After which, and a little amorous parley, Madame sat herself down upon the same place, at the bed's foot, and the young fellow standing sideway by her. She, with the greatest effrontery imaginable, unbuttons his breeches, and removing his shirt, draws out his affair, so shrunk and diminished that I could not but remember the difference, now crestfallen or just faintly lifting its head, But our experienced matron very soon, by chafing it with her hands, brought it to swell to that size and erection I had before seen it up to. She said, "Time to go again." Ah, intercepted my respiration. Ah. I admired then, upon a fresh account, and which a nicer survey, the texture of that capital part of a man, the flaming red head as it stood uncapped, the whiteness of the shaft, and the shrub growth of curling hair that embrowned the roots of it, the roundish bag that tangled down from it, all exacted my eager attention and renewed my flame. But as the man affair was now at the point of industrious dame had labored to bring it to, she was not in the humour to put off the payment of her pains, but laying herself down, drew him gently upon her, and thus they finished, in the same manner as before, the old last act. This over, they both went out lovingly together, the old lady having first made him a present, as near as I could observe, of 3 or 4 pieces, he not only her particular favourite on account of his performances, but a retainer to the house, from whose sight she had taken great care hitherto to secret me, lest he might not have had the patience to wait for my lord's arrival, but insisted on being with his taster, which the old lady was under much too subjected to him to dare dispute with him, for every girl of the house fell to him in course, and the old lady only now and then got her turn, in consideration of the maintenance he had, and which he could scarce be accused of not earning from her. As soon as I heard them go downstairs, I stole up softly to my own room, out of which I had luckily not been missed. There I began to breathe freer, and to give a loose to those warm emotions which the sight of such encounter had raised in me. I laid me down on the bed, stretched myself out, joining and ardently wishing, and requiring any means to divert or allay the rekindled rage and tumult of my desires, which all pointed strongly to their pole, man. I felt about the bed as if I sought for something, and I grasped for my waking dream, and not finding it, could have only cried for vexation, every part of me glowing with stimulating fires. At length I resorted to the only present remedy, that of vain attempts at digitation. Digitation? I'm 13, okay. Where the smallest of the theatre did not yet afford room enough for action, and where the pain my fingers gave me, in striving for admission, though they procured me a slight satisfaction for the present, started an apprehension which I could not easy till I communicated to Phoebe, and received her explanation upon it. The opportunity, however, did not offer till next morning, for Phoebe did not come to bed long until after I had gone to sleep. As soon then as we were both awake, it was but in the course to bring our lie-a-bed chat, to land on the subject of my uneasiness, to which a recital of the love scene I had thus by chance been spectatress of served for a preface. Digitation, right? Write it down towards night. That has to be on your list of words. The opportunity, however, did not offer until next morning, for Phoebe did not wait. I already read that part. Phoebe could not hear it to the end without more than one interruption by peals of laughter, and my ingenuous way of make sure I'm not missing anything of relating manners did not little heighten the joke on her. But on her sounding me, the sight had affected me, without mincing or hiding the pleasurable emotions it had inspired me with. I told her at the same time that one remark had perplexed me, and that very considerably. Ay, she says, what was that? Why, I replied, having very curiously and attentively compared the size of that enormous machine, which did not appear, at least to my fearful imagination, less than my wrist, and at least 3 of my handfuls long, to that of the tender small part of me which was framed to receive it. I could not conceive of it being possible to afford an entrance without dying, perhaps in the greatest pain, since well she knew that even a finger thrust in there hurt me beyond bearing. And to my mistresses and yours, I can plainly distinguish the different dimensions of them from mine, palpable to the touch and visible to the eye, so that, in short, great as the promised pleasure may be, I am afraid of the pain of the experiment. Ah, Okay. Phoebe at this redoubled her laugh, and whilst I expected a very serious solution of my doubts and apprehensions in this matter, only told me that she never heard such a moral wound being given in so mortal wound being given in those parts by that terrible weapon. Oh, Phoebe said, I ain't ever heard anybody dying from it. Okay, girl, you'll be all right. You're gonna be all right. Terrible weapon. And that some she knew younger and as delicately made as myself had outlived the operation. That she believed, at the worst, it should take a great deal of killing. That true it was, there was a great diversity of sizes in those parts, owing to nature, childbearing, frequent overstretching with unmerciful machines, but that at a certain age and habit of the body, even the most experienced in those affairs could not well distinguish between the maid and the woman, supposing to an absence of all artifice the things in their natural situation. But that since chance had thrown in my way sight of that sort, she would procure me another, that should feast my eyes more delicately, and go a great way in the cure of my fears of that imaginary disproportion. They're not always imaginary. You know what I'm saying? I want to wear more clothes or armor now. You have to wear breeches. On this, she asked me if I knew Polly Phillips. Undoubtedly, says I, the fair girl which was so tender of me when I was sick, and has been, as you told me, but 2 months in the house. The same, said Phoebe. You must know then she is kept by a young Genoese merchant, whom his uncle, who is immensely rich, and whose darling he is, sent over here with an English merchant, his friend, on a pretext of settling some accounts, but in reality to humor his inclinations for traveling and seeing the world. He met casually with his Polly once in company, and, taking a liking to her, makes it worth her while twice or thrice a week, and she receives him in the light closet up one pair of stairs, where he enjoys her in a taste, I suppose, peculiar to the heat, or perhaps the caprices of his own country. I say no more, but tomorrow being his day, you shall see what passes between them, from a place only known to your mistress and myself. You may be sure, in the ply I was now taking, I had no objection to the proposal, for I was rather a tiptoe for the accomplishment. Okay, so she's going to get a chance to see something else. All right. At 5 in the evening the next day, Phoebe, who's punctual to her promise, came to me as I sat alone in my own room, and beckoned me to follow her. We went down the back stairs very softly, and opening the door of the dark closet, where there were some old furniture kept, and some cases of liquor, she drew me in after her, fastening the door upon us. We had no light but what came through a long crevice of the partition between ours and the light closet, where the scene of action lay, so that the sitting in those low cases we could, with the greatest ease, as well as clearness, see all objects, ourselves unseen, only by applying our eyes close to the crevice where the molding of the panel had warped, or started a little on either side. The young gentleman was the first person I saw, with his back directly toward me, looking at a print. Polly had not yet come, and yes, in a minute, though, the door opened, and she came, and the noise of the door made him turn about. He came to meet her, with an air of the greatest tenderness and satisfaction. After saluting her, he led her to a couch that fronted us, where they both sat down, and the young Genoese helped her to a glass of wine and some Naples biscuit on a salver. Whatever that is, I don't know what that is. Presently, when they had exchanged a few kisses and questions in broken English on one side, he began to unbutton, and in fine script to his shirt, as if this had been the signal agreed on for pulling off all their clothes. Oh, they did take them all off. A scheme which the heat of the season perfectly favored. Polly began to draw on her pins, and as she had no stays to unlace, she was in a trice, with her gallant officious assistants, undressed to all but her shift. What's a shift? It's like an under shirt, something. When he saw this, his breeches were immediately loosened, waist and knee bands, and slipped over his ankles clean off, and his shirt collar was unbuttoned too. Then, first giving Polly an encouraging kiss, he stole, as it were, the shift off the girl, who, being, I suppose, broken familiars with its humor, blushed indeed, but less than I did at the apparition of her, now standing stark naked, just as she came out of the hands of pure nature, with her black hair loose and afloat down her dazzling white neck and shoulders, whilst the deepened carnation of her cheeks went off gradually into the hue of glazed snow, for which were the blended tints and polish of her skin. The girl could not be above 18, her face regular and sweet-featured, her shape exquisite, nor could I help envying her too ripe, enchanting breasts, finely plumped out in flesh, but withal so round, so firm, that they sustained themselves, in scorn of any stay. Then their nipples, pointing different ways, marked their pleasing separation. Beneath them lay the delicious tract of the belly, which terminated in a parting off or rift scarce discernible, that modestly seemed to retire downwards, and seek shelter between two plump, fleshy thighs. The curling hair that overspread its delightful front clothed it with the richest with the richest sable fur in the universe. In short, she was evidently a subject of the painter to court her sitting to them for a pattern of female beauty, and all the true pride and pomp of the nakedness. Pride and pomp of nakedness. The young Italian, still in his shirt, stood gazing and transported at the sight of beauties that might have fired a dying hermit. Feared? It's FIR''D. Feared? A dying hermit. His eager eyes devoured her as she shifted attitudes at his discretion. Neither were his hands excluded their share of the high feast, but wandered on the hunt of pleasure over every part and inch of her body, so qualified to afford the most exquisite sense of it. La la. It's like a slip. Okay, that's what I thought. So it's like a loose thing, but it's probably the very bottom of they wore so many layers of clothing. Right, so that's probably the last layer. Um, the young gentleman, by Phoebe's guess, was about 22, tall and well-limbed. His body was finely formed and of a most vigorous make. Square shoulders, broad-chested, his face was not remarkable in any way, but for a nose inclining to the Roman, eyes, dark, black, and sparkling, and a ruddiness in his cheeks that was more a grace, and his complexion was that of a brownish, not of the dusky dun color which includes the idea of freshness, but that clear olive gloss which, glowing with life, dazzles perhaps less than fairness, and yet pleases more when it pleases at all. His hair being too short to tie fell no lower than his neck. His short and easy, okay, that's short, that's long, that's short hair for them. In short, easy curls, he had a few sprigs about his paps, and garnished his chest with a style and strength and manliness. Then his grand movement, which seemed to rise out of the thicket of curling hair that spread from the root all round thighs and bellying up to the navel, stood stiff and upright, but of a size to frighten me by sympathy for the small tender part which was the object of its fury, and which now lay exposed to my fairest view. For he had, immediately on stripping off his shirt, gently pushed her down on the couch, which stood conveniently to break her willing fall. Her thighs were spread out to the utmost extension, and discovered between them the mark of the sex, the red-centered cleft of flesh, whose lips vermilioning inwards, expressed a small ruby line in sweet miniature, such as Guido's touch or coloring could never attain to the life of delicacy of. Phoebe, at this, gave me a gentle jog to prepare me for a whispered question, whether I thought my little maidenhead was much less. But my attention was too much engrossed, too much enwrapped with all I saw, to be able to give her any answer. By this time the young gentleman had changed her posture from lying breadth to lengthwise on the couch, but her thighs were still spread, and the mark lay fair for him, for now kneeling between them displayed to a side view of that fierce erect machine of his, which threatened no less than splitting the tender victim, who lay smiling at the uplifted stroke, nor seemed to decline it. Machine. Bite the lips gently. I don't know. We'll get to that. Which threatened no less than splitting the tender victim. Uh, he looked upon his weapon himself. How does it feel? If you know, you know. He looked upon a weapon himself with some pleasure, and guiding it with his hand to the inviting slit, drew inside the lips and lodged it after some thrusts, which Polly seemed even to assist, about halfway. But there it stuck. I suppose from its growing thickness he draws it again, and just wetting it with spittle, re-enters, and with ease sheathed it now up to the hilt, which Polly gave a deep sigh, which was quite another tone than one of pain. He thrusts, she heaves, at first gently, and in regular cadence, but presently the transport began to be too violent to observe any order or measure. Their motions were too rapid, their kisses too fierce and fervent for nature to support such fury long. Both seemed to be out of themselves, their eyes darted fires. Oh, oh, I can't bear it. It is too much. I die. I am going. I am going. Is that like I am coming? For Polly's expressions of ecstasy. I am going. Vermilioning. Right, that was the word. I die, I am going, were Polly's expressions of ecstasy. His joys were more silent, but soon broken murmurs, sighs, and heart-fetched, and at length a dispatching thrust, as if he would force himself up her body, and then motionless languor at all his limbs. She shewed that the die-away moment was come upon him, which she gave signs of joining with, by a wild throwing of her hands about, closing her eyes, and giving a deep sob, in which she seemed to expire in an agony of bliss. Okay, so what do we have? What about the respiration and expire in an agony of bliss? There you go, gentlemen. The gauntlet has been laid. She needs to expire in an agony of bliss. Yeah, you can tell it's written by a guy. Yep. When he had finished, yeah, like, wait, let me just not go there. When he had finished his stroke, he got off from her and lay still without the last motion, breathless, as it should seem, with pleasure. He replaced her again, breathwise, on the couch, unable to sit up. Excuse me. With her thighs open, between which I could observe a kind of white liquid, like froth, hanging about the outward lips of that recently opened wound, which now glowed with a deeper red. Presently she gets up, and throwing her arms round him, seemed far from undelighted with the trial he had put her to judge, at least by the fondness with which they eyed and hung upon him. For my part, I will not pretend to describe what I felt all over during that scene. But from that instant, adieu, adieu to all fears of what man could do unto me. They were now changed into such ardent desires, such ungovernable longings, that I could have pulled the first of that sex that should present himself by the sleeve and offered him the bauble, which I now imagine the loss of would be a gain I could not too soon procure myself. Oh, she ready now. Adieu. She said adieu, adieu. I'm not saying it right because adieu to you. All fears. She said goodbye. I'm in America. She said adieu to all fears of what man could do unto me. So she said, I am no longer afraid. Yeah. She said, I am no longer afraid. I'm gonna pull him by the sleeve and give up my bauble. That's a new one. Bauble. It's a bauble. Phoebe, who had more experience and to whom such sights were not so new, could not, however, be unmoved at so warm a scene, and drawing me away softly from the peephole for fear of being overheard, guiding me to as near the door as possible, all passive and obedient to her least signal. Here was no room either to sit or lie, but making me stand with my back toward the door, She lifted up my petticoats, and with her busy fingers felt to visit and explore that part of me, where now the heat and irritations were so violent that I was perfectly sick and ready to die with desire. The bare touch of her finger in that critical place had the effect of a fire to a train, and her hand instantly made her sensible to what a pitch I was wound up, and melted by the sight she had procured me. Satisfied then with her success in allaying a heat that would have made me impatient of seeing the continuation of the transactions between our amorous couple, she brought me again to the crevice, so favorable in our curiosity. We had certainly been but a few instants away from it, and yet on our return we saw everything in good forwardness for recommencing the tender hostilities. The young foreigner was sitting down, fronting us, on the couch, with Polly upon one knee, who had her arms around his neck, whilst the extreme whiteness of her skin was not undelightfully contrasted by the smooth glossy brown of her lover's. But who could not count the fierce unnumbered kisses given and taken, in which I could often recover their exchanging the velvet thrust, when both their mouths were double-tongued, and seemed to favour the mutual insertion of the greatest gust and delight. In the meantime, his red-faced champion, that had so lately fled the pit, quelled and abashed, was now recovered to the top of its condition, perked and crusted up between Polly's thighs. It was not wanting on her pair to coax and keep it in good humor. Stroking it with her head down, received even its velvet tip between the lips of not its proper mouth. Whether she did this out of particular pleasure, or whether it was to render it more glib and easy of entrance, I could not tell. But it has such an effect that the young gentleman seemed by his eyes, that sparkled with more excited lustre, and his inflamed countenance, to receive increase of pleasure. He got up, taking Polly in his arms, embraced her, and said something too softly for me to hear, leading her withal to the foot of the couch, and taking delight to slap her thighs and posteriors with that stiff sinew of his, which hit them in a spring. He gave it to his hand, and made them resound again, but hurt her about as much as he meant to hurt her, for she seemed to have a frolic a taste as himself. Wait, what y'all talking about? Valor, you thought you invented it? I think folks have been doing it for a while, at least since 1749 when this was written. My, 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 my. It's like there's no real chapters in this. I'm going to have to stop soon. Yeah, it's 2 a.m. Stop soon. So we had Phoebe turn her out, and then the old man, which she kind of got out of a little bit. And then she's been watching other people and pleasuring herself, or Phoebe's doing it. She still has yet to be with a man herself. For real, for real. I guess that's coming. All right. But guess my surprise when I saw the lazy young rogue lie down on his back and gently pull down Polly upon him, who, giving way to his humor, straddled and with her hands conducted her blind favorite to the right place, and following her impulse ran directly upon the flaming point of this weapon of pleasure, which she staked herself upon, up-pierced and infixed to the extreme hairbreadth of it. Thus she sat on him a few instants, enjoying and relishing her situation. Enjoying and relishing her situation. Whilst he toyed with her provoking breasts, sometimes she would stoop to meet her kiss, for presently the sting of pleasure spurred them up to fiercer action. Then began the storm of heaves, which from the undermost combatant were thrust at the same time. He crossed his hands over her, and drawing her home to him with a sweet violence. The inverted strokes of anvil over hammer soon brought on the critical period, which all the signs of a close conspiring ecstasy informed us of the point they were at. For me, I could bear to see no more. I was so overcome, so inflamed at the second part of the same play, that, mad to an intolerable degree, I hugged, I clasped Phoebe, as if she had wherewithal to relieve me. Pleased, however, with and pitying this taking she could feel me in, she drew me towards the door, and opening it as softly as she could, we both got off undiscovered, and she reconducted me to my own room, where, unable to keep my legs in the agitation I was in, I instantly threw myself down on the bed, where I lay transported, though through ashamed at what I felt. Phoebe lay down by me and asked me archly if, now that I had seen the enemy and fully considered him, I was still afraid of him, or did I think I could venture to come close to engagement with him? To all which, not a word on my side. I sighed and could scarce breathe. She takes hold of my hand, and having rolled up her own petticoats, forced it half strivingly toward those parts where, now grown more knowingly, I missed the main object of my wishes, and finding not even the shadow of what I wanted, where everything was so flat or so hollow, the vexation I was in at it. I should have withdrawn my hand, but for fear of disobliging her. Abandoning it then entirely to her management, she made use of it as she thought proper, to procure herself rather the shadow of the substance of any pleasure. For my part, I now pined for more solid food. ah, wasn't that your name in college? Storm of Heaves. This one time at band camp. But wait, she pined for more solid food. Mm, mm, mm. And promised tacitly to myself that I would not be put off much longer with this foolery from woman to woman if Mrs. Brown did not soon provide me with the essential specific. Oh, she done seen it now. Now she wants something else. In short, I had all of the air of not being able to wait the arrival of my Lord B, but he was now expected in a very few days. Nor did I wait for him, for love itself took charge of the disposal of me, in spite of interest or gross lust. It was now 2 days after the closet scene that I got up about 6 in the morning, and leaving my bedfellow fast asleep, stole down with no other thought than of taking a little fresh air in the small garden, with our back parlor opened into, and from which my confinement barred me. At the times company came to the house, but now sleep and silence reigned all over it. All right, I think that's a good stopping point. So they have to keep her locked up there to keep her virginal, so that they can get the big money for 15-year-old virgin. Beautiful virgin. My, 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 my. Well, well, well. Oh, thanks for the applause. Hey, Prince Yoshi-san. I missed you here before. For the dragons. Well, hope everybody's doing okay. And maybe we've all learned, I mean, we know about the subject matter, but maybe we learned some more words for it. So dudes out there, be careful with your instruments. And, you know, yeah. Wait, now I forgot that. I forgot that line that I liked. What was it? Something about respiration? I forgot already. Well, well, well is right. What in the world? This is literature. It's erotic literature, and down at my uncle's house. Oh, here it is. The emotion grew so violent that it almost intercepted my respiration. Radical it. 1749. Why the stunning appearance? Oh, thank you. You're down? Cool. Well, I read this last Friday and I did it again this Friday, so maybe we'll do it again next Friday. We don't always have to read this, but it's kind of interesting. And it's good for me anyway to read an actual book, not read on a screen, from beginning to end without the distractions of ads or whatever. Oh, thank you, Prince. Oh, thank you, Demo. Yeah. So that's where we left it. Fanny has now traveled to London after her parents died, thinking she's going to be a servant. She ends up in this brothel. Phoebe turns her out a little bit, but Phoebe's a woman. And that was all good until she saw her first instrument, the first weapon. And now she wants it bad. And they have to hold her back because they want to get the big money for someone to pay for a 15-year-old virgin, a pretty virgin. Yes, she does. She is, she said, Phoebe wasn't doing it for her anymore. Oh, and before that, she saw people doing it, and then she thought, there's no way that that fits into that. That must kill you, is what she thought. She thought that would kill her. And her more experienced friend Phoebe said, ain't nobody died from that. You'll be all right. Now that she's seen it, now that she's seen, I mean, she's clearly very straight. So now that she's seen a man and a woman do it, she's like, I'm ready now. So that is it. And they're waiting for her to, her man that they've chosen for her, he paid for, he hasn't arrived yet. He's going to come in a couple of days. And she thinks she's ready because an old ugly man had paid at first, but he was not able to complete the deed, and then he got arrested. So she's still technically a virgin. Is he French? Who, the lover or the guy? Us old ugly men are highly offended. Dude, the way she described this man, she was not having it. A brute. And plus he was basically there to rape her, so, that doesn't make it one attractive. But yeah, I don't think that could possibly be. Yeah. So, and and then he was kind of icky to her and mean. I mean, she left there with like a bloody nose and everything, but he, you know, left the game early, so technically she's still a virgin. And then he didn't come back, and then he got arrested. Oh, terrible, terrible. He was, well, she just called him a brute. And but you also have to remember she's 15. And at that point, she really knew nothing. She hadn't even seen a man and woman do it. So this guy coming at her was not. And he turned out to be. So anyway, he's gone. He's in jail for a long time. I don't know. We don't know yet what the next guy who paid for her, we don't know what he looked like. Or whether he's a nice guy or not. We don't know. But since she's been watching other people do it, now she thinks she's ready. Before she thought it might kill her because there's no way that can fit in that, she said. Oh, thanks, friend. All right. Well, thank you for everybody who came through on my No Music Fridays. Thanks for the raid from Bubalo, who's a new friend, and Towards Night, who's an old friend. And for all the regulars that came through and the new first-time chatters as well. Thanks for everybody who came along on the raids. That's very nice to come along on the raids, even if you can't say, oh, and Eli was here again. That's right, Latasia and Acid Angel Girl. So, yeah. And Denise. So, yeah, Bubalo was the other raid. Yeah, if you, so it's Memoirs of a Woman of Pleasure, if you want to look it up. That what I have up there is just from Wikipedia or something. But yeah, it's a whole thing, and it inspired like legal issues and stuff. But the man who wrote it, I guess, he's in jail. What else are you gonna do but write some erotica? That's what one does. So, oh, always, friends. Thanks for checking on me. I did stream yesterday. She's 15. I'm highly disgusted, right? I mean, but I suppose in 1749 people got married at that age, they probably did. It's just that she didn't have any experience because she was still with her parents. Oh, Asata. I don't know that. So we'll take notes of words that we know. And I encourage everybody to go into Tor's night stream and give him some words to work with now that we know some extra words. And have I gotten rest? I've gotten a little bit more rest. I haven't been up till 4 in the morning, which is why I'm getting ready to raid out now. It's been a little better, but not where it needs to be. I'm still recovering from that 3.5 days of hardcore moving, decluttering. It was like those home improvement shows. You learn the word heaves. Yes. And I've learned these phrases and all these different words for things like instruments and weapons and yeah. Oh, and for my part, I now pine for more solid food. Pined for more solid food. Love it. I don't think I can utilize and consumption, which is tuberculosis, right? Oh, you like David Copperfield? David Copperfield, but that's 1800s, right? That's around 1850 or so. So this is even before that. The Dickens stuff, right? I think that's then. This is 17. I don't know if I've ever read anything else from 1700s. But I did see. You guys ever see the movie Dangerous Liaisons? It's an old movie, but it's set in the 1700s. It's got Glenn Close and John Malkovich in it, and Michelle Pfeiffer. I like period pieces. It's a very good, deep, dramatic movie, and it's all about this stuff. It's all about people jumping in and out of each other's beds. They just say it in pretty words, and they do it with all this big clothes on, you know? So, yeah, if you like that kind of thing, I recommend it. So this is 1700s. This is time. This is Mozart time, you know? So they were doing it. But yeah, now I'm in the mood to watch Dangerous Liaisons, which is about this Dangerous Liaisons. People would have their lovers and their husbands and wives and all that mess, and they clearly had prostitutes. And yeah. Okay. So what do we say? Yes, it's an art putting on clothes after. Well, taking off. Well, in this last scene when she actually took off all her clothes, because they didn't do that all the time, and these people only bathed like once a month and took off everything. You know, they weren't. It was a different time. They didn't have running water and all that stuff. Um. So, and they wore all those layers of clothes. They always talk about heaving bosoms, but they always wore those low cut, very tight tops. Day 340 in the bag. That, guys, that's 25 days away from a year. That just can't be. All right. Day 340. We like to say this at the end of the streams because it's stream street. Day 340 in the bag. Shout out to lurkers. If there are any, I don't keep the list up. We're very lurk friendly. So if anybody wants to sneak in on this stream when I'm reading from this steamy novel and not be acknowledged, it's okay. You will not be acknowledged here. You can sit in the shadows, not unlike Miss Fanny Hill did, watching from the shadows. So it's all good here. And you can do that even on the music stream. So I don't keep the list up. I do have a TikTok. I do have YouTube, trying to grow them. They're such weird things. Like Freaky Freaks in the cut. That's right. You can lay in the cut and be freaky. Enjoy watching the freaky. Do all that. I also have a Discord. And yeah, I haven't made much progress in the moving stuff because I can't get over there. So, but I did order some cleaning products and a new vacuum, and so when I can get over there, I can next get over there for any length of time. Probably not till Monday. So, yes, there's a raid call. Anybody who is who can go on the raid, even if you can't stay or would continue to lurk if you're lurking, please do. It's just so nice to be able to do that. Let's go to let's go see. Oh my gosh, Jazz is live? Okay, we're gonna go see Jazz. Jazz Simply Made's very good friend of the stream and friend. And you just woke up again? Oh, Dream On is also, I also love Dream On very, very much. She's amazing. But let's go see Jazz because she doesn't stream. Her streaming schedule is kind of off. She's taking random breaks. So we're going to raid Jazz Simply Made. Did everybody copy the raid call? Because did I? Do it again so I can copy it. Okay. All right, so let's go see our friend Jazz. Thanks again, everybody, for being here. This was fun. You can let go of your pearls now if you were clutching your pearls. We're going to go see Jazz. Don't tell her what we were doing. All right. I'm going to probably lurk. She always draws me in, but I'm going to try to lurk while I'm shutting everything down, getting ready for bed. You'll keep it broad. Okay, you do that. You do that. All right. People who are supposed to be sleeping, go to sleep. And people who are up, have fun with Jazz. I'll be there for a little bit. Oh, your power keeps going. Oh, bummer. All right, you guys ready? Hold on. We are going, I think we're going to the Philippines. I'm not entirely sure. All right, so hold on. Here we go. Thanks again for the rates. And shout out to the lurkers. All right, guys. Peace.